King Edward VII of the United Kingdom was King of the United Kingdom from 1901 to 1910. He was married to Princess Alexandra of Denmark, and they had 6 children together, including 3 daughters: Princess Louise, Princess Royal, Princess Victoria of the United Kingdom, and Maud, Queen Consort of Norway. Princess Louise, Princess Royal and Duchess of Fife was the eldest daughter and 3rd child of Edward VII of the United Kingdom and Alexandra of Denmark. Known for being shy and quiet, Louise was a low-key member of the British royal family. Louise's birth was not without difficulty. Her mother, Alexandra, became ill with rheumatic fever during her pregnancy. Her mother was encouraged not to use chloroform, a painkiller, during the labour because the doctors felt it would worsen the Princess of Wales' condition. The labour was painful as a result when Louise entered the world on the 20th of February 1867. Louise grew up with 3 brothers and 2 sisters: Albert Victor, George, Victoria, Maud and Alexander John. Tragically, Alexander John passed away at 1 day old. Louise was a granddaughter of 2 European monarchs, Christian IX of Denmark and Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom. Unlike their mother, Louise and her sisters were not considered to be conventionally beautiful, and they were nicknamed the Hags. They received a minimal education. The sisters were shy and quiet in public, and they often appeared to be quite withdrawn. However, in private, they were lively and flourished. Being possessive of Louise and her sisters, their mother did not want them to marry. Despite attempts to keep her daughters by her side unmarried, Louise married Alexander Duff, 6th Earl Fife, on the 27th of July 1889 at the age of 22. He was 17 years older than her, and her 3rd cousin through their mutual ancestor George III of the United Kingdom. Alexander's descent was via William IV and his longtime mistress Dorothea Jordan. Louise's grandmother, Queen Victoria, created Alexander the Duke of Fife and Marquess of Macduff 2 days after the wedding. Despite their significant age difference, they were well matched and led a loving married life together. After their honeymoon, they settled down in the Duke's country estate in Scotland. Louise soon became an expert at salmon fishing. The couple had 3 children together: Alistair, Alexandra and Maud. Alistair was stillborn. In 1900, when it became apparent that the Duke and Duchess were unlikely to have any more children, and thus no son to inherit the dukedom, Queen Victoria issued an unusual letters patent for the time. Queen Victoria created a 2nd dukedom of Fife along with the earldom of Macduff, with a special remainder. In the event that there was no male heir, the peerages would pass to the daughters of the 1st Duke, and then to their male descendants. In 1901, Queen Victoria passed away, and Louise's father became Edward VII. In 1905, Louise was created Princess Royal, and her daughters were granted the title of Princess with the style of Highness. The king was discouraged from doing this, but he ordered that it be done. Prince George, Prince of Wales, Louise's brother and the future King George V, was disturbed by this act. In December 1911, Louise and her family set off to spend the winter in Egypt and Sudan, where the weather was more beneficial to Louise's health. Their ship went aground off the coast of Morocco and they were shipwrecked. The Duke developed pneumonia and died on the 29th of January 1912 in Egypt. Alexandra succeeded as the Duchess of Fife in her own right. After this, Louise led a somewhat reclusive life. She would occasionally accompany her mother and her sister Victoria to public events. In her later years, Louise suffered from heart disease. In October 1929, she fell ill with gastric hemorrhage and was treated for it in London. 15 months later, she passed away in her sleep on the 4th of January 1931. Princess Victoria of the United Kingdom was the second daughter and fourth child of Edward VII of the United Kingdom and Alexandra of Denmark. Known as Toria in the family, she was a favourite sister of George V. Victoria was born on the 6th of July 1868. Victoria was close to her sisters. They were not conventionally beautiful and developed shy personalities as a result. They received a minimal education. Victoria would spend summertime in Denmark, her mother's homeland. Their mother Alexandra was possessive of her daughters and did everything she could to prevent them from marrying and leaving her. Victoria did have several suitors, including Prince Adolphus of Teck, Sir Arthur Davidson, and Archibald Primrose, 5th Earl of Rosebery. In his youth, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia was in love with Victoria, loving her for her seriousness and unfeminine mind. Another suitor included the future Christian X of Denmark. She rejected him, which displeased both of her parents, even her mother, who was opposed to her daughters marrying. Archibald Primrose, 5th Earl of Rosebery, and Victoria held mutual affection for each other, and they would have liked to have married. However, Victoria's mother discouraged her from marrying anyone, and Victoria took this to heart. She remained her mother's companion until Alexandra's death in 1925. Victoria was a passionate photographer and compiled several albums of family photographs, some of which went on display at exhibitions. Victoria adored animals and even tamed a pigeon, which she would take with her on walks. Throughout her life, Victoria was very close to her brother George, and they maintained a warm, loving relationship. In adulthood, they would share daily phone calls. George would pass away only a month after Victoria. Victoria was close to both of her parents. She accompanied them during their official events and ceremonies. When Victoria's mother died in 1925, Victoria was finally able to live her own life at long last. She purchased a home for herself in Buckinghamshire and became an active member of village life in the village of Iver. In her will, she left her home to her nephew Prince George, Duke of Kent. In her final years, Victoria suffered from neuralgia, migraines, indigestion, and depression. She passed away on the 3rd of December 1935. Maud, Queen of Norway, was the youngest daughter of Edward VII and Alexandra of Denmark. She became Queen Consort of Norway through her marriage to Håkon VII of Norway. Maud was born on the 26th of November 1869. As a child, Maud was the most cheerful of her sisters. She was a tomboy and was nicknamed Harry. As a young woman, Maud fell in love with Prince Francis of Teck, but he did not share her feelings. She and her family would visit Denmark every summer. During these visits, she became close to her cousin Prince Karl of Denmark, the future Håkon VII of Norway. They fell in love and were wed on the 22nd of July 1896. Maud's father Albert, the future Edward VII, gave them Appleton House on the Sandringham estate for Maud to use when visiting England. They spent their honeymoon in Appleton House. Maud was reluctant to leave England, so the couple continued to live in England for 5 months after the wedding. They moved to Denmark in December 1896 and took up residence in Bernstorff Palace. Maud found the Danish winters unbearable and visited England as often as she could. 7 years after their wedding, Maud gave birth to their only child, Alexander, in 1903. 2 years later, the union between Sweden and Norway ended, and the Norwegian government began searching for candidates to become the King of Norway. Karl was chosen due to his descent from previous Norwegian monarchs and his marriage to a British princess. Before he accepted the kingship, Karl insisted a referendum be held so that the Norwegian people could have a say in whether or not they wanted to retain the monarchy. After it became clear that the Norwegian people were in favour of a monarchy being retained, with Karl as the monarch, Karl accepted the throne. He arrived in Norway on the 25th of November 1905 and took the oath as king 2 days later. He took the name Hakon VII, and his 2-year-old son was renamed Olaf. Maud and Karl were crowned king and queen on the 22nd of June 1906. Maud and Karl ensured their son would be raised in Norway as a Norwegian, and that he would learn the language. Maud herself never became fluent in Norwegian, and she never gave up her love for England. She did fulfill her duties as Queen of Norway, becoming active in women's rights and the welfare of unmarried women. She founded the Queen's Relief Committee during the First World War to assist people in difficult circumstances. Her last public appearance in the United Kingdom was in 1937 during the coronation of her nephew George VI. In October 1938, while staying in London, she fell ill and had to have abdominal surgery. She survived the surgery but died on the 20th of November 1938, 6 days before her 69th birthday from heart failure. Her remains were transported to Norway, where she was buried. Maud was the last surviving child of Edward VII and Alexandra of Denmark. Her husband would survive her by 19 years.